Hello everybody, welcome to episode 175 of Show Viewers. Today we'll be going over Dragon Ball Z Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan. Now, just kind of preface beforehand, it took me like 2 weeks to watch this movie, well, actually more than 2 weeks, because I watched like the first 30 minutes and then finished in like the next 40 until like today. So, I'm a little bit rusty on the beginning parts, so I'll kind of blast through that pretty quickly. But yeah, so we start off the movie. We see as Krillin's doing some karaoke, everyone's chilling in a park. We also see as Goku and Chi-Chi are going to like this private school event to try and get Gohan into this. I believe it's a private school. But yeah, so we see all this, and we see in the park everything's kind of going good until ultimately a spaceship crashed down. Like people start to rush out of it and all of it, and then ultimately we see as what appears to be a Saiyan warrior pops out. And so we see all of this. We also ultimately see as Goku and Chi-Chi ultimately end up getting to the interview, where we see then as Goku gets a notice from King Kai that there is someone who is essentially utterly destroying the Southern Galaxy, this legendary Super Saiyan, and he wants Goku to stop it. So ultimately, we see as Goku uses instant transformation to transport to this legendary Super Saiyan, and we see then back on Earth still. Well, actually, the events on Earth happen first. But yeah, so we see as this dude comes out by his name. Oh my gosh, his name is Paragus, and Paragus has come to look for Vegeta because he's like, "Yo, Vegeta, I am essentially making a new Saiyan Empire, and I want you to be king on the new planet Vegeta." So Vegeta's like, "All right." Leaves Bulma, planned on leaving, shrugs, ultimately ends up heading out. But ultimately, we see as everyone on the spaceship. Well, everyone who's kind of there ultimately ends up going on the spaceship. We see as Krillin, Master Roshi, Oolong, Gohan, Trunks, and Piccolo sneaks on as well, as we see later on. But yeah, so we see they all ultimately end up going to this new planet Vegeta, and we see there as it seems to be beautiful. We see as a new palace has been erected for Vegeta once he gets here, and Paragus is kind of giving him the tour and everything. We also see as Goku starts to get the tour, but we also see as everyone else is kind of suspicious of it too. So we see ultimately as Trunks, Gohan, and I think Krillin end up going on their own little exploration through here, and we see in fact that there is something nefarious going on here. We see that there are these aliens here who are from planet Shamo, who have been enslaved by Paragus to essentially erect cities to make it look as if this new planet Vegeta is being built up and civilized. And so ultimately, this ends up leading to a bit of a conundrum among this little trio, and we see as they end up helping like liberate the slaves here and all of that. And we also see like the interior stuff that's going on. We see as Roshi and Oolong are getting drunk and chilling around and all of that, and they're the predominant like comedic effect throughout this movie, the comedic relief. And we see then as Goku and Vegeta really get to start going around the castle. We see as Vegeta ultimately ends up running into Paragus' son, Broly. And we see as Broly is a very quiet dude. He doesn't really do much. And we see his first Paragus and him kind of go about and everything. And then ultimately we see as Goku starts to go into the castle. And in fact, we learn that Broly has some history with Goku. He does not like Goku. So we see as he's ultimately interacting with Broly for the first time. He's like chilling all that. But we see as Broly starts freaking out. Because apparently what we've learned is Broly and Paragus, son and father, are, well, father and son, respectively. But yeah, so we see as they are, well, how they survived the destruction of Planet Vegeta. They're obviously Saiyans. They ultimately escaped due to the power of baby Broly. And this was through Broly getting angered at the destruction of Planet Vegeta and building like a little aura sphere around him and Paragus so that they could ultimately escape. And we see that they had been, slotted for execution because Broly was super powerful, and King Vegeta did not want that on his hands, so he had planned to kill Broly and kill Paragus, but this ultimately did not end up working out. But we also see that when Broly was an infant in like the nursery, Goku or Kakarot lay beside him and kept crying and all that. And this ultimately embedded in Broly's mind and outraged him. So we see as he almost breaks free, but then ultimately Paragus is able to control him via this like regalia, these accessories that Broly has on, and he's ultimately fine. So we see as everything plays out until ultimately Broly is still like left with this. He's like still struggling. And we then see as night passes, ultimately Broly ends up waking up in the night. He's like, no, I gotta kill Kakarot. So he ultimately ends up going out and starting to fight Goku. And we see as he's like, whoa, what's going on? But then ultimately we see as Paragus is able to get him under control. But Goku recognizes here, this is the legendary Super Saiyan. This is the guy who's been destroying the Southern Galaxy. So we then see the next day, Paragus tries to convince Vegeta to, I don't know why he was necessarily convincing him to go off planet. No, he wasn't convincing him to go off planet. Vegeta was wanting to go off planet, but Paragus was like, no, stay here, stay here. We'll sit here, bide our time, and look for where the legendary Super Saiyan truly is. But he's actually only doing this because there is a comet moving toward the new planet of Vegeta. I believe it's called Gumori. And he wants Vegeta to be here when it lands, so obviously he can wipe out Vegeta for what King Vegeta did to his family. And so we see as this ultimately ends up playing out, and then ultimately I know I said ultimately like 1,000 times, apologies, but we see as Vegeta begins to approach the ship, and then Goku ends up coming out. Goku's like, no, he's trying to get you to leave. He's trying to get you to stay here so he can kill you. We need to leave, because that guy right there behind you, he's the legendary Super Saiyan. And we see as Goku pulls up and Broly starts going mad. We see as he starts powering up, his hair starts going different colors and everything. And because it didn't go like a tealish color earlier on when he fought Goku after in the nighttime, but then we see as it starts going crazy, he starts bulking up massively. He's like the Incredible Hulk from the Incredible Hulk movie, the one with Edward Norton in it, where the angrier he gets, the more muscular he gets. And we see as Broly gets jacked. He is massive. He's already a tall guy, but he goes from being like that relatively scrawny black-haired kid to being a beast. And we see the iconic scene where he's with his arms out like this, and we see his hair poking up and all that, and he keeps growing. And Paragus is like, well, he's no longer under my control, so y'all are all screwed. So we see then as Vegeta tries to hit Broly with like a neck kick after going Super Saiyan himself, and he's like, I'll deal with this Super Saiyan easy style. No, this neck kick does nothing, and Vegeta, he gets broken here. So then we see as the fight ensues. Also, one kind of thing I kind of forgot to mention, but like having to control Broly has been a problem for Paragus throughout his life before he came up with these items to do so. And it's because like we see in a flashback how Broly would go about destroying plants and all that. Paragus would have to try and control him, but he was actually a really wild card, so he couldn't control him. And Broly was more powerful than Paragus. But yeah, so we see this as Broly's like outrage starts to dispel. We see as he starts going mad, he starts beating down on Goku, beating down on Vegeta, and ultimately Vegeta's kind of left there. Now, this is probably my favorite part of the movie. We see Vegeta throughout the rest of this fight, essentially. He is broken. Vegeta's pride has been shattered. We see his Paragus talking with him. He's like, yeah, bro, there's no point in fighting. I don't know what your people are fighting for. And Vegeta's like, yeah, I don't know. They're fighting an unstoppable beast. I don't know what they can do. Nothing's going to happen. And we see Vegeta is completely shattered. He becomes a coward because of how intimidating Broly is. Broly is just that high of a level because Vegeta, the most prideful, the literal icon of pride in all of anime, is broken by the mere might of Broly. Ooh, that was some crazy stuff to show how powerful Broly is. But we get to see Broly is a beast, a behemoth of a fighter. So we see he starts fighting, and then ultimately we then see as Gohan and Trunks pull up, ultimately after saving the Samoans, or what do you want to call them, and then the fight between a 3-on-1, 3 Super Saiyans versus this legendary Super Saiyan Broly, and they get creamed. It is awful. They get obliterated. Everything goes crazy. And Broly, he's still doing fine. He doesn't have a single scratch on him. Throughout all of this battle, he does not get one scratch on his entire person. And we see then as ultimately he's kind of looking around for him, but then he sees Gohan. He's like, oh, Kakarot's son, I'm going to slime him. So he ends up throwing an energy ball at him, but then we see Piccolo ends up aura farming, standing on a plinth as he always is, and comes in and swipes it out the way. And ultimately, he ends up giving Gohan a Senzu Bean, and he goes around and gives everyone else a Senzu Bean. And then we see as a 4v1, 4 Z fighters versus 1 Broly ends up going. And they still get beat. And it's at this point where we see as Goku's kind of like the last one to get beat once more. And we see as Goku hits a Kamehameha. He pulls out a Kamehameha point blank on Broly. Like this, Goku is kind of tired. We see as he took a bunch of Ki blasts from Broly earlier on because Goku for some reason just kept walking into him and blocking him, which is kind of stupid. But we also see here as he really gets prepared to hit Broly with a point blank, like this close Kamehameha. Like I'm assuming this is full blast, and he blasts him. Not a scratch on Broly. Oh my goodness, how this beast of a man, this creature, I don't even know how to explain it, this titan, this colossus, just took a point blank Kamehameha, the type of crap that was killing super perfect Cell, just didn't take any damage. Oh my gosh, how? And we see then as Broly puts the smackdown on him again. And we then see, well, there's only one person left, Vegeta. So Vegeta's ultimately able to build up his pride because he sees that a low-class Saiyan is fighting against Broly when he's not. So he's able to do this out of his class prejudice. So he ends up coming up, trying to fight Broly, gets creamed, and then all of them are essentially beaten. And Broly's just kind of playing around now. He's just putting the beat down on Goku just for the fun of it. Like, Broly, he's just playing with him now. He just wants to make Goku feel pain. But then, ultimately, we see as everyone starts playing like, yo, we need to give our power to Goku so he can actually fight back. So we see as Piccolo, Trunks, and Gohan start to give their power to Goku, but it's ultimately not enough. And Vegeta just won't do it. Vegeta's like, no, I'm not letting a low-class Saiyan beat this behemoth. And it's such a stupid idea, because you were a coward, bro. You were hiding behind the skirts of Paragus. Also, I forgot to mention, like, the whole scene with Paragus. But yeah, after they kind of just kind of beat down, we see as Broly ends up getting in the a similar area as... Well, this is after Vegeta gets beat, but not before, like, the power-giving thing. But we see as he ends up going over to the area where Paragus is, and he ends up talking with him. He's like, well, Paragus is trying to flee after Vegeta left. And we see as he gets into his little Saiyan pod, and Broly pulls up, he's like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I was preparing for us to leave in safety and get away from this comet. And Broly's like, in a one-man pod? Grabs the pod, crushes it with his father inside, and hurls it at the comet. Paragus is dead after that one. But yeah, so we back to where we were given the energy, and ultimately Vegeta does in fact end up breaking down and giving Goku the energy, and we see as he gives it, and then Broly ends up like trying to throw a punch at Goku, but Goku ultimately ends up getting all that energy, is able to hold the punch, and Broly's like, yo, what type of man is this guy? So we then see as Goku is standing on equal footing with Broly, and everyone starts to fall out from fatigue due to them giving all their energy to Goku, but Goku is prepared now. We see as Goku, as per usual in the DBZ movies, hits Broly with a gut punch that sends him flying towards the comet. This is like the only solid hit that has been landed. I mean, like, not really solid hit, because we took a point blank Kamehameha. Like, this is the only like effective hit that Broly takes throughout this entire movie, and he gets sent right into the Gomori comet. And we then see as everyone ultimately, I believe, uses probably, it's not instant transmission because he doesn't go to a point of key, but they ultimately end up getting out of the atmosphere of the new planet Vegeta, and all the Shamoans, whatever you're going to call them, and Z-Fighters are all safe and sound, and we see then as they end up going back to Earth and meeting up with Chi-Chi, who is flabbergasted when Goku says, oh, my hobbies are reading and exercise, because that's what was one of his like trained answers for the interview in the beginning of the movie was. But yeah, holy smokes, Broly, I know this is a very stereotypical take for a DBZ movie watcher, but so far, Broly is my favorite design character, and probably my favorite antagonist, because, well, I don't know if I'd say my favorite design character, he's my favorite design antagonist, so he's my favorite antagonist all around, because dude was a behemoth. And also, one thing I don't like is, I know I haven't watched the other Broly movies yet, but like, people always say, oh, he's just kind of an idiot, he doesn't say anything but Kakarot. That's really not true, at least in the first movie, because he does just kind of say Kakarot a lot before he goes to his Legendary Super Saiyan form. Legendary Super Saiyan Broly is like peak Broly, at least like intelligence-wise too, because he starts speaking, and he puts up some like intimidating lines. One of the ones I thought was goofy though, and Goku said like, "Take it easy, man," or something like that, and Broly goes, "What's easy?" It kind of reminded me of that one clip of the dude goes, "Oh, did you have a father? What's a father?" But yeah, it reminded me of that. But yeah, so yeah, Broly, I loved Broly, and I just love like how Vegeta broke. Like this, I'd say is probably my favorite DBZ movie so far. No crazy take, but yeah, like it was probably my favorite simply because of how Vegeta took Broly. Like this, Broly was already intimidating, but Vegeta being broken, his pride being in shambles because of how powerful Broly was and how hopeless the situation was. Oh, that was glorious. I guess a perfect way to break down such a steadfast character. When you break down a steadfast character like that, it always leads to a peak, I guess, production. But yeah, it was phenomenal all around. Like, I love this movie. And I do think it's kind of crappy about how Goku beat Broly, because you're telling me like 3 at the time full powered Saiyans can beat him, but when they give their like half energy, yeah, they give him is all their energy, but like they didn't have that much energy left over after taking such a beatdown. Was able to beat Broly? I really don't know. But yeah, it was still a good movie, and I cannot wait to see Broly and Broly's second coming, because Broly is sick. I love Broly. Broly's a sick character. I love this like red, like I don't even know what it is, kind of like waistcoat, like you know how like kids like wrap their coat around their waist, kind of like that. But yeah, that it is a sick design, and I cannot wait to see more of Broly because he is, like I said, my favorite antagonist out of all the DBZ movies so far because he's just super cool, and like I love his green hair because green's my favorite color, and it's just very appealing to me. But yeah, I also love like how intimidating he is. Like I love how massive he is. He's substantially bigger than everyone else. He is the like biggest we have seen so far, and like all of Dragon Ball really, at least like musculature wise. But yeah, genuinely great. I would highly recommend it. Like even if you haven't watched any of the other DBZ movies, watch Broly. Broly's great. But yeah, or Broly the Legendary Super Saiyan. But yeah, like I said, that's all I really have for Dragon Ball Z, Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan, and all I really have for episode 175 of Shelf Review. So, thank you very much for watching.